Hello everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. We'll just wait for a few more minutes to let some others join, and we'll get started soon.
Okay.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Again, thank you everyone for joining. This is our first webinar in our series of webinars for partners of the AFD and FSDA innovation projects. We will be recording the webinar and we'll be sharing the link with those partners that were not able to attend, as well as sharing the slides so that you can have them as reference if there's any material that you need to go and look back at. So we are really excited to have two of our partners presenting in the webinar, because the idea for this series is really to showcase some of the good work that our partners are doing on the projects in order to inspire other partners and for them to kind of draw insights from this work that they can apply on their own projects. So when we were trying to think about the first topic that could apply to all partners, claims management really came up as a good option, because Yes, if you can move to the next slide. When we think about claims, this is a central piece of any insurance scheme, naturally, because like from the client's perspective, it is the moment of truth when the promise of insurance is realized. And then from the business standpoint, it's one of the biggest components impacting profitability and viability of the scheme, both from the perspective of the cost of claims itself, but also the cost of managing the claims function, right? So when we think about the processes that are central to the claims function, so if you look at the 4 little squares in green, so we have the claims procedures. So these are your processes for notification, submission, approval, and then payment. You have client communication. This is how do you communicate and educate clients about the claims process, as well as the actual payment notification. Then you have data management, monitoring, and review. So both this relates to collecting enough data so you can actually adjudicate that particular claim, but then also what is the analysis and the reflection that needs to go to look at the historical claims data that you may have to identify trends and other kind of decisions that you might want to base based on this data. And then going with the claims procedures, you also have workflow and operations, which is really about how information gets transferred from one point to another within the organization. So whether it's through a process or it's across departments, for example. So in this webinar, so Patrick Kihuria, who's the head of the microinsurance division for Britam, will really talk about the claims procedures and the workflow and operations processes that Britam has been reviewing in their own processes to kind of figure out where the obstacles are and then how they can improve them both for the clients as well as for Britam, the business. And then Frida Mwaura, who is the Operations Director for MicroEnsure Africa, will talk a lot about MicroEnsure's own efforts to understand their claims data and history so that they can make improvements both on the product as well as the processes. But just before I hand it over, when we're thinking about the claims function, because it's so central to any insurance scheme, there are a number of other influencing factors that we need to consider. So the first is, if you look at the red, I'm actually not sure what this shape is, with the red triangle plus square shape on the left. So the product distinction, so the product definition itself actually impacts how simple or complex your claims process can be, as well as the organizational culture and philosophy. So for those of you who were with us in Nairobi, which is the last time that we probably discussed some of these ideas together, we heard Pioneer really talk about how they wanted to be known as the insurer that pays claims. So if that is your goal and the mission, how do you then design processes that supports that philosophy, right? And then finally, on the right-hand side, what we are kind of labeling as tools and solutions, the idea is really to think about the infrastructure, the technology or strategies, and what partnerships you might want with third-party players to leverage these different components to again improve the claims functions for both clients and the business. So we will, like Frida and Patrick will talk a little bit about some of their own tools and solutions that they've been using, but the idea is really to think of this this function, holistically, and not just about your claims process. Okay, so before I move on, just to kind of help you with the webinar system that we're using. So Patrick will discuss first the work that Britam is doing with claims procedures. Then we can have a few questions, clarifying questions that you might have for Patrick. So in your GoToWebinar panel, you have a questions section. So feel free to submit your questions and to write them as in when you think of them, as Patrick is going through his material. And then if there are any immediate ones that I feel that we should address before we hand it over to Frida, we can take a little break and have a Q&A. We would really like for this webinar to be as interactive as possible, so please do submit your questions. If you have a mic and you would actually like to verbally ask your questions, we can even do we can even have that kind of discussion at the end, not in between, but at the end we have plenty of time for Q&A, so we can actually unmute you and you can ask your question if you would like to, or if you want to share experience from your projects, that's totally fine too. So just please keep that in mind and try to pose as many questions as you can so that we can make this useful for you as well. Okay, yours, could you move on to the next slide, please? The next one is fine. The one after this is also okay. So I just wanted, actually, sorry, one before. So I just want to kind of set the stage before I hand it over to Patrick. So, what we are really trying to work with our partners on, and a lot of your fellows might be bringing this up, or you might be already in the process of going through this review, is to look at a systematic review of your claims procedures to identify the impact of the product design itself and the program design on these processes, but to also identify certain tools or strategies that you can use to improve value, client and business again. And really, when we're trying to figure out what are the areas of improvements, really trying to identify what are the biggest challenges, what are the biggest bottlenecks in the process. So Britam has done a lot of this work already, so we thought it would be very useful for all of us to kind of hear about why they actually undertook this process, what they did, and then what they've learned from it, and how they plan to apply those lessons within the program. So okay, so I think I've said enough now. Patrick, I'll hand it over to you to kind of help us understand your experience.
Okay, thank you, Aparna. Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick, and I'll be taking you through what Britam as an organization has been doing in terms of claims management. A little bit about Britam. So we are a financial services group based in Kenya, but we have interests in Eastern and Southern Africa. So we operate majorly in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, South Sudan, Mozambique, and Malawi. And in terms of the products and services that we offer, it's basically around insurance. So we tackle life insurance, health insurance, and general insurance. We also in asset management, so we deal with investment planning, wealth management, and we also have some interests in banking and property. So I myself work in the microinsurance division in operations. So operations is just basically I head the underwriting and claims sections, and microinsurance is considered as part of the health insurance docket. A little bit about myself. I've been doing microinsurance for the last 10 years. So I have a little experience in terms of microinsurance. So I think I'll just go straight into the material. So next slide. So basically, in terms of microinsurance, Britam has three major types of products that we do, but the three products, as you can see on your screen, are basically health insurance products. So basically, when we look at our products, we basically look at our target markets in terms of the mass market. We also look at the types of coverages when it comes to health insurance, where we tackle both inpatient and outpatient covers. And of course, in terms of claims, we have three major types of claims. So we have claims that in terms of our customers going to hospitals and the hospitals billing us, so that's one type of claim. We also have situations where our customers pay for insurance, for the medical services and ask for us to reimburse their payments, and of course we have death claims, especially where an insured has passed away. So those technically are the various aspects about our products. I think we can go to the next slide. So when we partnered with the ILO and FSDA and we asked why is it that we need to do a claims review, we looked at three specific themes in terms of our review. The first was why we need to do a claims process review. The second item was why we need to undertake that review, or how we actually undertook that review. And thirdly, the changes that we propose to make based on the review that we've actually done. So for us, the rationale for the review was majorly on two particular items. One is client satisfaction. We felt that timely payments to the hospitals and to our clients was quite key in terms of ensuring that our customer focus is maintained and we have happy partners and customers. So for us, that was one major reason. The second major reason is because we wanted to adapt to our new IT environment. Britam has been undergoing infrastructural and software changes within the organization, and we felt that the challenges that came from the systems that we are currently using are not taken forward in terms of our inefficiencies and in terms of ensuring that our workflows are done well. In terms of the objectives of the review, the first objective was for us to map out our claims processes, see how many steps or what are the distinct steps in terms of claim payments, and of course also review our team structure, how we do our workflows, and look at the roles of each and every staff member involved in the claims process. The second objective was also to calculate the time it takes for us to make payments or settle our claims. So we were trying to calculate the average processing time that it takes for us to do these claims. The other third item was for us to identify the pain points within our process. We believed that there were quite a number of complaints or unsatisfactory service given to our customers, and we needed to find out where as an organization we were dropping the ball to ensure that we can give excellent service to our customers. So the one thing to note is that when it comes to claims for microinsurance products, we have extensive claims processes that sometimes can be very complicated, and we needed to actually have a view of the steps and the workflow processes that would ensure that we reduce the turnaround times when it comes to claims review. So basically that's the issue of the rationale for the review and the objectives. Next slide, please. So how we decided to conduct the claims review is we decided to have an approach in terms of how we're going to go around the review. So the first step was for us to do some process mapping. Now basically process mapping was for us to see or identify the number of steps or the ways of actually settling that claim. And in this particular process, we decided to first list the type of claims that we have within the microinsurance division. And as I had said earlier, we identified them as hospital claims, which are paid directly to the hospital. And then we have reimbursement claims that are paid directly to the insured. And we have death claims, which are paid to beneficiaries. So once we finished identifying that, we also identified the people who were involved in the processes in terms of each and every step. So the roles that are involved in processing the claims. And of course, we also looked at the records or the data that is used to actually confirm that our claim is payable. The other item is that we also decided to check for double data entries to do validation around our data to ensure that any double entries or any multiple approval instances within the systems were actually eliminated. So that is the approach that we took for process mapping. The next step that we took is we wanted to measure our stepwise turnaround times, and for us this was important because we needed to identify basically the initial steps or the middle steps or the end steps in terms of delivering claim payments. And in these particular steps, we normally looked at issues to do with active and dead time. So in active time is as long as there's an activity happening on a claim, that was measured. In terms of dead time, we identified this as the time when no action is actually happening on a particular claim or invoice that is being paid. The other thing is that we decided, especially for most insurance organizations, we tend to measure our turnaround times from when we receive invoices or documentations for claims. So we also decided that we should actually try and measure the time taken from when the event of the claim happened. And part of our review was also to detect any outliers in terms of claims. So we identified that there are particular processes that could give skewed data in terms of the turnaround times. For example, claims that we have received from hospitals and they are returned for corrections or adjustments, which we commonly call relists. And we also have unusual claims, claims whereby they did not follow the normal process. So we were also looking out for those that we are calling outliers. The last step that we took in terms of the approach was to identify the as-is processes. So we identified what are the steps or processes that we do as of today and map them out to the should-be processes. And this is important because we need to rationalize each and every step to find out whether a step within the process is actually necessary and what the impact for that step is. The other item we're supposed to confirm or check on is what are the ideal turnaround times. So as an organization, we had a view of what the turnaround time would be, but without mapping the as-is and should-be maps, it was very, very difficult for us to know how long a claim should take. And finally, in terms of the as-is, we were supposed to, or we defined the roles of the structure of the team that handles claims so that it is very clear in terms of how they participate, and we avoid a lot of hands-off, and we also ensure that the workflow within the organization is done very well. So that, in a nutshell, is how we viewed the claims review. Next slide. So this slide just shows how we mapped the as-is processes. I know it is not very clear in terms of everyone seeing each and every step. So the basic idea here is we identified the players in terms of the claims process. And as at the top there, you can see we identified 3 players. The first player is the hospital, so who of course do much of the notification and intimation of claims. And of course then we have the person who we are calling the quality assurance controller. So this is a medical personnel within our organization that actually is involved in the vetting and confirmation of claims. And then of course we've got a claims assistant. So this is basically a data entry staff member who actually ensures that the workflow moves. And if you look at the map, it has process boxes and decision boxes, and I think at your own time you can actually be able to see how we mapped the process map. So basically that's how the as-is process map for our claim situation looks like. So next slide please. So after we conducted the review, we were able to find some findings in terms of the review that we did, and I will take you through how we found out the issues emanating around claims. So if you look at the screen, you find 5 distinctive process steps that we have initially within our department, and the first one is claims capture. So basically this is the data entry stage where we do our recording and data management. The next step is verification and indexing. So verification is where the medical personnel looks at the claims to confirm that the submission of claims was adhered to and the purpose of the claim is also specified very well. We have also a step called indexing. This is basically where we take the physical documents and image them into a document management system. The next step is requisition. So here under requisition, we for all the claims that have actually been entered into the system and verified, we normally assemble them in a batch according to either the hospital or the claimants who are actually being paid. And we do a request to either the finance department or the approver within the organization to approve the payment. And then you have the approval stage. This is where the physical sign-off in terms of the claim, if it meets all the criteria, is signed off by a senior person within the division. And finally, you have a step called finance payment. So here is basically where institution of the payment to the claimant is done. So basically, those are the 5 steps that we identified within our organization. And as you can see, the areas in that infographic is, so if you look at the claims capture, it shows the duration in terms of how long it took within a process. So if you're looking at a particular situation where it's like 5 days or 7 days, then you can see the amount of time it takes to do claim capture against all the other steps that we have. We did 2 measures. The first measure we did was year to date, whereby we looked at all the claims for 2016. We had a resourcing issue at the time, and we got some resources in September. So as you can see, we also measured between September and October, where we had some resources, and there was a reduction in terms of claims. Next screen, please. So when we decided to measure the same information from the time of event, we were able to see 2 distinctive areas. Interventions that are done by our external partners, that is the hospitals, the customers, and the tea factories who submit the claims. And of course, we have our own internal processes. So in the infographics, the items in blue are our internal processing, and all other items are interventions from our external partners. And in the case of the hospital, what we were able to find out is that whilst the hospital took some time to submit between the time of event and when they submitted the claim to Britam, Britam also took very long between receiving the claim and actually making a payment. While the other 2, the reimbursement and death, we process them quite a bit faster than a hospital claim, and as you can see, the time taken by the external partners in the combination of the 3 colors is way longer than for us internally. So I think from those findings, we were able to see that in terms of satisfaction and in terms of the partners that we're dealing with, that we are dealing with them from 2 different aspects. Next slide, please. Okay, so how did we translate our findings into action? So we decided to look at the steps, and we decided that we shall have a review, a strict review, each step at a time. And internally within Britam, we felt that the claims capture was one of the steps that was really causing a pain point for most of our customers. So currently we are actually reviewing what we can actually be able to do to actually reduce the amount of time taken within that step. So one of the findings that we felt was that as you have identified all the steps, it is important to actually deal with 1 step at a time. The other item is to separate the IT and non-IT interventions. So from the particular steps, we were able to see that some of them were non-IT interventions, and we felt that once we were able to map those non-IT interventions, to reduce them, and to automate where necessary. For the IT interventions, because of the current project that we are actually undertaking, we felt that it is important for us to optimize the steps and the workflows within the systems. The other item we decided to, or we found from the review, was data management, and we felt that data management is key. So one of the items is to reduce data fragmentation. We have our data sitting in very many sources in terms of very many systems, and we felt that a consolidation of that data needs to happen. And of course, using that data analysis to do smart provider management. And here, when we talk about smart provider management, we are looking at, from our panel of providers, we feel that there are a few providers that provide us with the largest volume and the largest value in terms of claims, and of course give these providers or hospitals the necessary attention that they need to give, so that we can actually ensure that we meet the turnaround times or the expectations. The other thing that we decided to do is process automation. So out of the non-IT interventions and IT interventions, we found that authorizations or approvals within the system could actually be automated, and most importantly, claim submission and notification. Some of the ideas we're thinking is using social media, using a portal to ensure that the people who are submitting the claims, that is the hospitals and the clients, can actually be able to send or submit claims. The whole idea about the portal and mobile is for us to have a multi-interface options for our customers and our partners. The last item there is team structure. So we were able to find which where to actually allocate our resources based on the steps to ensure that the workflows are as expected, and we reduce the time taken for the claims to be processed. So I think that's, next slide. I think that's it for me. Back to you, Aparna.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Patrick. No, it's really interesting to see the kind of systematic review process that Britam has gone through. So again, I was saying, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat box. Patrick, I actually just had a couple of questions that maybe if you could expand on
Yes.
two ideas that you talked about, which were really, I think, could be interesting for viewers. So one is this idea of trying to rationalize each step.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if there's an example of you realize maybe there's an extra review that's happening that might not be needed, or maybe there was something else that was there, like were there steps in your process that through this review came up that maybe we can change it or eliminate completely? And then this, maybe I'll just ask you both together, so then and these, the second one is around the IT versus non-IT interventions. Maybe if you could just expand on that a bit, because I'm not sure if that's clear to everyone.
Okay, thank you, Aparna. So in terms of the steps, in terms of rationalizing each step, we felt that in terms of the steps, like for example, the indexing. So the indexing comes after the data entry, and we found that there was a lot of time taken for imaging of the documents into the system. So one of the suggestions, or one of the things that we're thinking about, is to begin by the image scanning. And the reason why we felt that is because one of the capabilities that we have within our new IT environment is using the core system to upload documents through the core system and into our document management system. What we're doing currently is that we are imaging our documents directly into the document management system, and then trying to input those particular details into the core system. So I think based on the new environment, we might have to rejig the steps, and but we've identified the imaging or the indexing of the documents as one of the critical steps. The other item is around approvals. So, for example, we have been doing approvals based on physical paper. So what happens is that our staff bring the printout from the system, because the system then doesn't have a place where you can actually put a digital signature. So in terms of the non-IT interventions, we identified authorization as one of the places where we can actually be able to put a digital signature into the system to avoid a situation where people want to make approvals within the system. But I think the whole idea about the non-IT interventions was basically to bring submission of claims or situations whereby the hospitals or the customers bringing the documents to us is much easier. So, for example, they are traveling quite a far distance between where they work or where they live to one of our data collection centers to submit particular claims, and we're saying that we should actually be looking at that particular process and try and make it easier for them. So one of the tools that we've actually identified is a portal that they can be able to log into or use social media in terms of submitting their documents. I don't know whether I've answered your question, Aparna.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to the second presenter. So Frida will talk a little bit about the efforts that MicroEnsure is making to improve their claims processes, primarily through looking and understanding the data better. So just, if you can just go back to the previous slide. So when thinking about data management and the program review process for that, so obviously the most immediate requirement is to ensure that we're collecting sufficient data to evaluate and pay the claim, to ensure that there's no fraud within the organization, to ensure that there's accountability, so each step is tracked and collected in the claims process. But then there's also added value that can be gained from looking at historical data and evaluating trends, seeing maybe if you have a particular rise in claims for certain demographics, trying to understand those trends as well. So I think MicroEnsure has actually looked at this from number of different angles. So it'll be really interesting to hear from Frida about the efforts that you've made and the insights that you've gained from this process, which are then resulting in changes within not just the process but in other parts of your scheme. So Frida, maybe I can hand it over to you now. Yeah, I'm not sure if she's Frida, we can't hear you, so I don't know if you can unmute yourself. I'll just hold on a second. I think she might have lost connection, so we'll try to get her back. So she can't unmute herself. Can you unmute her? Okay, so we're just having a technical issue, so she's just going to try to dial back in, so then we can actually hear her. Okay. In the meantime, if anyone has questions for Patrick, since he's still around, feel free to raise your hand or post it. So Patrick, we have a question. Oh, hold on. So the question is, what were the improvements over time frames after implementing the changes?
Okay. For example, when we looked at the 5 steps, so basically when we measured all the 5 steps prior to September, the number of days that we would take cumulatively was nearly 80 days to make a payment. When we did our review, or when we implemented some of our reviews in September and October, that reduced to nearly 60 days. As at the close of December, we had reduced it back to 30 days. As at last week, the number of days that are actually been taken by the staff members is actually 15 days. So predominantly, knowing which particular step is taking a lot of time, putting a lot of effort in terms of data capture, asking the document management system staff to image and index the documents as fast as possible, having the approval and the finance department working together to ensure that it reduces the time taken to approve a claim. I think that has had a very positive impact. Aparna.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I think we have resolved the technical difficulty, at least for now. So Frida.
Yes, I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Perfect. So over to you now. Yeah. Frida?
Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Hi, everyone. So I'll just give you a brief introduction on MicroEnsure. We're a company that specializes in mass market insurance products, and we were founded 15 years ago in 2002. And since then, we've had over 50 million customers register for our products in different countries, 25 countries around the world. MicroEnsure is owned by AXA, Omidyar, the IFC and Sanlam, and also to a small extent by some of our senior management. Next slide, please. So the way MicroEnsure works is primarily through partnerships. So we will typically partner with a front office distributor. This would typically be a bank or an MFI or a telco. So we typically partner with organizations that already have their customer base, and then we build our products and processes around what their needs are. On the other side, we also partner with risk carriers. These are insurance companies such as Britam and reinsurance companies and cell captives. So generally, we do not carry the risk ourselves. Our role is to be the back office administrator. So we do product design and pricing. We create marketing and training materials for our front office partners. We capture and process data. And more importantly as well, we service claims end to end. In some cases, we go all the way through to claim payment. And all of this is made possible by a system, an organization that is built on robust operations. So it's really important that our staff are able to support the products the way they need to be supported, that we're able to service our customers with speed and with agility. We have found that there's no one-size-fits-all as far as product, as far as process. We need to be able to adapt to the needs of our customers. Next slide, please. So our key insight in the time that we've been doing mass market insurance is that people actually love insurance when it works. So insurance generally has a really bad reputation in the market. People feel that it is something that rips them off, and part of this is because maybe the way as an insurance industry the way we communicate products and benefits has not been tailor-made to our market. So what we have found is when people see that insurance actually works, they tend to be very excited by it and will be motivated to register for it or to buy it. The bottom here on the slide, we've shown our typical freemium product lifecycle, and let me just explain what this is. With some of our partnerships, we will work with the front office partner to design a product that they distribute to their customers for free. And by free, we mean that the front office partner pays the insurance premium on behalf of its customers to encourage certain behavior. So with a telco, for example, they might want to encourage greater recharge or greater usage of the phone, and they will pay for a certain insurance benefit the more you top up. With a bank, for example, they might want to encourage savings of a certain amount or people doing certain types of transactions, and so they will offer their customers free insurance on that basis. And once people have had a taste of this free insurance, then we typically move to the paid for product where the customers pay the insurance themselves. When we're dealing with the mass market, a lot of people have not experienced insurance personally, so this is a good way for us to get insurance products in their hands, is where they don't have to pay for them right up front. On the flip side of this, we have the kinds of products where customers pay for the premium themselves right from the get-go, and these would typically be credit-linked products. So where a bank or an MFI is issuing credit, is issuing loans to its customers, then we will typically build insurance products that support that credit that they're extending. Next slide. So ultimately, claims are the most important feature of insurance products for customers. There's an ad that we have here, which I think when this slides are shared, you can click on the link. So this is an advertisement that we did in Ghana for our Airtel insurance product. And this is the claimant called Hafiz Baba. He was actually the first claimant on Airtel insurance, which we launched in Ghana in 2014, in early 2014. So he was speaking about his experience of signing up for Airtel insurance, and he was uncertain about it because all he had to do was dial a USSD code and enter his name, and then he was registered for insurance. So 2 months after he registered, he fell ill and was admitted in hospital. So once he was discharged, he called Airtel and reported the event, and then a few days later his claim was paid. So once he had notified us and sent the documents, he got his money within a matter of hours. And what he was saying is that this is real, and this is the kind of communication that we want going out to our customers, that insurance is real. So it's important that they hear about claims from real claimants rather than from actors. So we have found that paying claims is actually, contrary to what might have been a conventional belief in insurance, paying claims is vital to the survival of an insurance company. And the more claims you pay, the more value you can show to customers. Next slide. So because of the importance of claims, we found obviously that delaying claims is a really bad strategy. And no matter how good your product might seem or how cheap it might seem, if the claims process is painful for customers, it makes them walk away. So I'm going to go through in the next few slides, I'm going to go through in some detail how we're able to process claims in a short time. But as Patrick had said earlier in his presentation, we also look at claims from the date that the event occurred, because from the point of view of a customer, this problem started when the event occurred, whether it was a fire or somebody passed away or they went into hospital. So we look at the claims process right from the beginning all the way through to closure. And our goal is always to make it as short as possible, to get from the date of loss through to closure. Next slide, please. So these are our guiding principles. So as I mentioned, we start looking at claims from the date that the event happens, and not only from when we are notified of it. We track every step of our claims process. So we have the 5 high-level steps. You know, the event happens, it's notified, there's some validation, there's authorizations and payment, but in between there are very many little steps that need to be done. So we track every phone call, every email, whenever documents are received, whenever documents are reviewed. And in order, again, to compress the time taken from the start of the claim through to closure, we start doing our validations with as little information as we have available as soon as we learn about a claim. There's some preliminary validations that we can do even as we await documents. Something that we have found is important is to maintain direct contact with claimants through the process. So as I mentioned earlier, we typically work with front office partners, and because of that, the customers would typically report claims to their front office partner, because that's who their insurance came through. So they would report the claim to the bank that gave them the loan, or the telco which they have insurance with, and then that information would come to us. As much as possible, we try to have direct contact with claimants, because it makes things move faster, and we're able to get much more accurate information when we have contact with customers, rather than passing the message through various parties before it gets to the person who actually has this information. When we were children, we used to play this game called Broken Telephone, where everyone would sit in a line, and the person at one end would pass a message would whisper a message to the person next to them, and then that person would whisper a message to the person next to them, and at the end of it, we would find that the person at the very end had a very different message from the person than what was given at the beginning. So we want to avoid that as much as possible and have direct contact with claimants where possible. And because of this contact with claimants, we're able to have a process and documentation requirements that adapt to their individual needs. So for example, if we have a hospitalization claim, if we're able to speak with the claimant directly, we can find out what documents they already have access to. So it may be, in some cases, a discharge summary if somebody has been to a hospital in an urban area. If somebody has been to a hospital in a rural area, they might only have a receipt, for example, or the little card that they're given when they are admitted. So we try and adapt our requirements based on each individual claimant's situation. Something else that we make sure we do is to follow up proactively with claimants until closure. So when a claim is reported to us, we could have very basic information, maybe even just the person's name and whatever the event was. Thereafter, we need to collect more information from them and documentation from them. So we will proactively follow our claimants, typically once a week for up to 6 weeks. in order to get the information and the documents that we need. This also means that if somebody had committed to getting us a document a week ago and they haven't given it to us today, if we call them and speak with them and find out what the problem is, we could adapt the requirements based on the challenge that they're facing so that we can actually give them a solution. So again, our goal is always to get to closure as quickly as possible. When it comes to the way we receive documents, we try and be as flexible as possible, such that if somebody has the documents in hand, they can send them to us. They can take a picture of the documents and send them to us by WhatsApp. We very rarely ask for the original documents because the information that we need will be on the electronic version of the document. Or if somebody has, the equivalent of 20 US cents, but they don't have a smartphone, but there's a cyber cafe near them, then they could go to the cyber cafe and have the documents scanned and emailed to us. For others, it might be more convenient for them to visit the branch or the front office partner because maybe it's near their shop. So we try and work with claimants in every step of the way to make sure that what we're asking for is realistic for them, while making sure that we're doing our due diligence. Next slide. So something else that's been very important to us is data analytics. So these are some of the KPIs that we measure. So we look at claim volumes against different metrics. We look at claim incidence rates. And this is a big factor in our pricing. As I mentioned earlier, we tend to develop our own products and price them internally using our claims data. So the incidence rates for different products are very helpful for us when we're developing them. And it means that when we are going to negotiate with an insurer about placing a business with them, we have data to back up the rates that we are proposing to charge, which are often lower than what the market typically offers. We also look at claim ratios, making sure that the claim ratios are not too high or too low, because when claim ratios are too low as well, it's a problem of value, and it's something that we need to address. In terms of operations, we look at our turnaround times. We look at the number of times it takes to get the number of I use the word contact, the number of contacts it takes to get a claim from when the incident happened through to closure. So as I mentioned, we track every email, every phone call, in some rare occasions, every visit, in order to get a claim through to closure. With our insurance partners, we also give them data on proportion of claims that are paid on time. And here we always look at what is in the service level agreement, as that should be the maximum time within which claims are paid. Ideally, we are aiming for lower than this. So we keep track actively of what proportion of claims are actually being paid on time, so that when we're able to identify a problem, we can address it fairly quickly. Next slide. So these are some of the insights that we have gotten from our analytics and from our processes. So one of the things that we measure is the reasons for rejection. So with one particular product, we found that a number of claims, a significant proportion of claims were getting rejected because of the time that it was taking for them to notify us, which told us that there was a problem in terms of their communication with us, or the claimant's communication with us. It was taking too long, such that claims were being rejected only on this basis. So that gave us something to address with a partner. With another product, it showed us that the time that we had given them to report claims was too short, because of these are people in a rural area, and it was an organization which had field officers and then an office staff and then a head office, and documents and notifications would go through all those people before they got to us. So we needed to adjust the time allowed for them to report claims. I'd mentioned earlier about claims incidence rates and how we use these for our pricing. So we also aim to track if our products are performing the way they're expected to perform. When you have claim ratios that are lower, significantly lower than we had anticipated they would be, this is an opportunity for us to enhance products. So by offering better benefits without increasing the premium, so that the number of claims and the amount of claims being paid out grows enough that the customer is feeling the value. Where it's too high, where it's higher than expected and is not profitable, then it also means we have an opportunity to arrest the problem and change the policy terms. With one of our products, we realized that we needed to decrease the benefit that was payable per event because it was extremely high and was causing the claims ratio to be very large. So this table that I have here shows claim processing turnaround times. So these are 3 different partners that we have in our books, and these are the actual average turnaround times for 2016. Now we use this data to analyze our processes, but we also use this data to discuss processes with our partners, our front office partners, and with our insurer partners. So if you look at the first line, it says Scheme 1 ME Direct. So that is a scheme which we were testing out in 2016, and this was direct to market. So there was no front office partner involved. When customers had a claim, they got in touch with us directly. And when that happened, we were notified of the claim within a day and a half of the event happening. For this particular product, we were offering hospitalization. So often people would call us while they were still in hospital. Something else that was unique about this particular scheme is that we had negotiated and agreed with the insurer that we would have claim settlement authority. This means that we open a bank account which the insurer funds, and it is used by us only to pay claims. So it's a dedicated claim settlement account, and we have 3 of these arrangements across Africa, 2 in Kenya and 1 in Ghana. And if you look at this, this particular series of turnaround times, we got from the incident all the way to payment in less than 3 working days. With the second scheme, we did have direct contact with the claimants, which is good. It meant that we could get documentation faster, we could do some validation faster, and we had claim settlement authority. So again, we're able to pay these claims within a short time. So from incident to payment was 22 working days, whereas on the other hand, one where we do not have any direct contact with the customers and where we do not have claim settlement authority, it's stretched as far as 56 days on average. And these are similar businesses, but you can see the difference in the turnaround times based on the model that is being used. So our analytics there's still a lot more that we want to be getting out of our data than what we get now. We're constantly looking for ways to retrieve more intelligence from our data. So these are just some examples of what we have found. But I just want to reiterate what we said earlier. Our goal is always to make this process as seamless as possible for the customer, so that they get back up on their feet as quickly as possible. But then even for the front office partner themselves, it's a big selling point for them when claims are paid well and the customers are able to see the value of what is being offered. Yeah, I think that is the end of my presentation.
Great, thanks Frida. Maybe just stay unmuted for now since we have a few questions for you. Maybe I'll start off with my question. So you talked a little bit about the preliminary validation that MicroEnsure can do, from the time of notification but before submission of the claims. I was just wondering if you can expand a bit on that. And then I don't know if it's related or not, but in this slide that we still have on here, for the second scheme, the incident to notification time is probably like, is 13.85 days. So that's probably where most of your time is being spent. So I was just wondering if you can maybe share why this is time period, why there was a lag in notification for this scheme, and if there's anything that MicroEnsure could do to decrease it.
Okay, so the first question about validation. So if we know even just the name of the customer, we can at least search for them in our database and check if they are covered. And if they are covered, we can find out which partner they're covered with, what products they have, when their policy started versus when their policy is going to end, so that we can at least check that this is a claim that is potentially valid just on that basis. And then as we get documents, we're going to check. For example, with hospitalization, we might say we have products where you have to be hospitalized for 3 consecutive nights or more. The documents will be able to tell us whether this was the case. So these are the validations that we do at different stages. I hope that answers your question, Aparna.
Yeah.
Okay. On the second one, yes, it is true that actually if we look at most of our scheme, bulk of the time is taken from incident to notification, and there are a couple of reasons for this. So first of all, when insurance is bundled, so when it comes to things like credit life insurance, the person who is actually insured has passed away, and their family may or may not know that they have insurance. So sometimes what will happen, or often what will happen, is the person's next month's installment will not be available in their bank account, and the bank will reach out and find out that maybe this person passed away, and then that is when we would be notified. Also, what happens sometimes is the claimant may notify the front office partner, and depending on the internal processes within the partner's organization, it may take some time before that information actually comes to us. So one of the initiatives that we had recently was to provide these small cards that we intend to give to the borrowers of a certain MFI. We started this out in Kenya. So this card is very simple. All it shows them is, a picture of a fire, a picture of somebody in hospital, just basically saying if any of these things happens, call this number. So we're going to test that out and see if it has any impact on us being able to be notified of claims earlier.
Okay, great. Maybe I can pose a couple of questions from the attendees. So in your experience and from your analysis, have you found whether timely claims payment has any impact on the success of the freemium product? So in terms of success defined, in terms of conversion from free to paid.
Yes, it definitely does. So when people learn that claims are actually getting paid, then it increases the believability in the product. So even things like posting these ads, like the one that that there's a link to, playing those ads in the partner's branch or something where people are able to see real claimants, people who look like themselves, it increases the believability of a product and makes people much more likely to convert from the free product to the paid product. It even increases the proportion of people who enroll for the free product, because surprising as it might be, just because something is free doesn't mean necessarily that everybody takes it up. We actually still need to convince people that it's real and that they can trust it, and seeing claims paid is a big part of it.
Okay. In the scheme 1 here with direct, are the claims paper-based or online?
So we do not ask for any kind of physical papers to be submitted to us unless there's something very unusual about the claim. So typically with this particular scheme, they would take photos of the documents that they had and send them to us via WhatsApp, and the claim payment in scheme 1 and scheme 2, the claim payment is made by mobile money.
Okay, and then can you elaborate a bit on, sorry, like only a couple more questions. Can you elaborate a bit on the claims validation step, and which is key to preventing frauds?
Okay, so I'll try not to go into too much detail, but so I'd mentioned earlier that we believe it's important to have direct contact with claimants, and we have found that simply having a conversation with the claimant about the event can help us decipher any kind of inconsistencies. So we will speak with, ideally we'll speak with claimants about the event. We will review their documents. In some cases we'll speak to third-party providers such as hospitals to check if everything, the entire story is consistent as a way to pick out potential fraud.
Okay, great. Patrick, there's a question for you, so I'll just pose it and then when you're ready you can answer it. So given the improvements that you've been experiencing in the claims payment timeframes, in what ways was the team able to demonstrate the enhanced client value to Britam management? And have you seen any improvements in client value? Have you seen any impact on take-up as a result of this improved client value? It might be too soon for the second one, but it'd be good to just get your thoughts.
Sorry, just repeat the first part of the question.
In what way have you, like the team, the microinsurance team, has been able to demonstrate the enhanced client value to management?
Okay.
As it the decrease in the claims payment time frames.
All right. So we've been able to show, first of all, in terms of the turnaround time. So senior management has been tracking the time it takes for claims to be paid, and had indicated that we've reduced from an initial 60 or 70 days to the current 15 days. So management tracks that particular item. The other aspect is that based on the presentation that we did, the management has bought into the idea around setting up a portal to ensure that document submission is easier and convenient for the customers. The third also initiative is when our claims used to take so long, we used to receive quite a number of calls, so complaints from our customers, and those are also tracked, and there's been a significant reduction in terms of the number of calls, complaints in terms of the delay in terms of payments. So I think those are the tangible things that we've been able to see based on this review.
Okay, great. Okay, there are no more questions right now, but if you have other questions, just keep adding them into the question box. I'll just maybe go through a couple of wrap-up points, and if you have any questions, we can take them quickly. You're going to go to the next slide, please. So just a little bit to summarize and some key takeaways from Frida and Patrick's comments. So it's quite interesting and heartening to see that both MicroEnsure and Britam are looking at the total settlement time, because that is key for clients. And then when you're trying to focus on improving the process, it's really important to identify the biggest problem or the bottleneck first, so that we can ensure that we are working on the biggest problem child. And then in terms of using technology or trying to hardwire some of these automations in, it's always probably useful to test the workflow and the process maybe on a manual basis before we automate it. And then finally around data management, I'm just going to repeat what both Patrick and Peter have said, but in terms of looking at your performance, identifying which performance indicator it is that you want to track, and then trying to analyze them, and then trying to segment the data by either a client profile or by type of claim or product would be useful, or in the case of MicroEnsure, by the partners that they're working with, to trying to identify kind of what systems are working better than others. And then finally, I think when it comes to and this goes to this last question that just came up, when it comes to coordinating these processes and data requirements, it's really important to have different departments and not just the claims department aware of these numbers and the results, because these numbers are impacted by so many other components of the scheme, not just the claims process, that it's important to ensure that we're sharing the data and ensuring that we're collecting the correct data at each step in the process. And then finally, onto the next slide. So at the facility, we've also been studying and analyzing claims management through reviews of different schemes, earlier partners as well, and we've outlined a series of guiding principles that I won't go through them right now because it'll take a long time, but we have 8 principles that we've put on here on the slide, and so for as a reference, and if you can go 2 slides forward. They're also outlined in this paper on claims management. Can you go to the next slide? And the next one. So these are the different principles that we've actually heard them echoed by Frida and Patrick today, but it may be useful to kind of review them as well as you're going through your own review process, a program review process, both for the procedures as well as for data side. And then just one more, next slide. So the principles and the guidelines, as well as a number of cases are outlined in this first document, the microinsurance paper 28, which is claims management and microinsurance, and it's available on our website. And that lists and can point to some useful examples as well to kind of refer back to as you think about this program review for your own schemes. So I think if we have no more questions, I would just like to maybe end the webinar here and really thank both Frida and Patrick for taking the time and giving us such valuable comments. Actually, sorry, there is one question, so maybe I'll just pose that and then we can wrap up. So I think this question is, I'm not sure actually, maybe it could apply to both of you, but the question is really like, after a client who's hospitalized and if they want to receive the benefit, like basically how is the claims payment process, how does it work, and maybe both of you can talk a little bit because we didn't really talk about that piece of the process too much. So how is claim settlement, how is payment settlement done for both Britam and MicroEnsure?
Okay, so for the products that we currently offer, sorry, there's a lot of background noise where I am. For the products that we currently offer, we typically have a benefit that is based on the number of nights that somebody is hospitalized. So if we are notified when the person is still in hospital, that's scheme 1 example that I've given. When we were notified when these people were still in hospital, we just needed to wait until they had crossed the threshold. In this case, it was 2 nights. So after the 2nd night, we could ask the hospital or the claimant, if they were up for it, to send us documents showing when the person was admitted and showing that they were still admitted. And then on that basis, we would just make the payment by mobile money transfer. More often than not, we get notified of claims after people are discharged from hospital. And again, we would do the same. We make the payment by mobile money transfer, or in a few cases by a check, which is then deposited in their account, because this will typically be bank or MFI customers, and we just deposit that check into their account.
Okay. Patrick?
I think I want to echo the same sentiments that Frida has said. So the processes of settling the claim are quite similar. When we receive the 3 types of claims, the hospital claim, the reimbursement, and the death claim. So for the hospital claims, because it's credit relationship that we have with the hospital, so the hospital invoices us and sends the documentation to us, and we then settle to the hospital via electronic funds transfer. and in some few cases for the hospitals that are in very remote places, we do use mobile money to settle. For the reimbursement claims and the death claims, of course, we do receive the documents via the various collection points. And once we receive those documents, we process them and pay them via mobile money, or in some cases, in some situations, we settle them through an aggregator. So for example, if it's for the tea farmers, because some of the tea farmers don't have accounts, we do then pay to the tea factory, and then the claimant can actually go into the tea factory and get dispensed the funds. Yeah, Aparna.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think now I can thank you all again for taking the time and sharing your experiences. If you were in a room together, you know, we would all clap for you. But it's you can imagine that. I think this webinar was really fantastic, and we will, as I said, share the recording and really encourage, you know, others who weren't able to make it because of it's in the middle of the workdays. It's always challenging, but hopefully you can. They can listen in later on. We will have our next webinar in May, and the focus there is going to be on change management, and we'll probably try to showcase, you know, 2 of our other projects to kind of learn and for everyone to learn from different experiences. So thanks again, Patrick and Frida. It was a fantastic webinar, and we hope to see all of you again in a couple of months in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, thank you.